Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Criterion. And in this edition we look at the Eric Rohmer set of 4 films set in the seasons of the year called Contes des Quatre Saisons, or Tales of the Four Seasons. Rohmer died in 2010, just shy of his 90th birthday, and was a French New Wave stalwart who specialised in the delicate dance of human nature, in detailing the amusing and delicious romantic complications we build into our lives, because we rarely know ourselves as well as we think we do. The director also liked to group his films into series, with 6 moral tales already in the collection, including the Oscar-nominated My Night at Maud's, and the equally astute Claire's Knee being the best known. And in the 1990s he turned out a quartet of films he called Tales of the Four Seasons. Each tale is largely set in the calendar season of its title, and each one contains a story thematically appropriate to its moment in the year. It's also unmistakably a Rohmer film, filled with soulful, beautiful, often frustrating characters, prone to engage against the backdrops of some of France's most striking vistas. The 4 films produced between 1990 and 1998. We start with Contes du Printemps, or Tale of Springtime, from 1990, and like most Rohmer films, this film explores human intellectual relationships, with long dialogues and precisely placed settings. Tales of the Four Seasons bears out its title with a portrayal of insipid love. It also reveals somewhat playfully how impossible it is to force love to conform to our designs. Jean is a high school philosophy teacher who meets Natasha at a party in Montmorency. Since neither of them knows anyone else at the party, they strike up a conversation. Jean shares an apartment in Paris with her boyfriend, who is out of town, but he's left the apartment in a shambles, and Jean stays just long enough to take some clothes and 2 books with her. That's Plato and Kant. And she then stops at her own apartment. But her cousin, Gaël, is using it with her boyfriend, who is on furlough from the military. Natasha lives with her father, Igor, who is a 40-year-old reluctant bureaucrat. But he rarely turns up, or so she assures Jean, since he lives with his 20-year-old girlfriend, that's Eve. And since Jean has no other preferable place to stay that night, she gives Natasha a ride home and stays at her place. Now, whether by accident or design, and even Rohmer's accidents are indeed part of his design, Igor comes home the following morning while Jean is in the shower. Complications invariably ensue, and that forms the crux of Rohmer's tale. The thematic use of spring and its renewal cycle is visually presented from the orderly, colder Paris home to the warmer, bucolic country residence, and Natasha's father complex and his propensity for cycling through younger women is also embedded as a seasonal theme. Jean, through acute observation of the family dynamic and listening to Igor's comments about Eve, clearly realises that she would just be another part of the new to old cycle, so she goes back to renew her relationship with her own boyfriend with fresh new flowers. Now, nothing very dramatic usually happens in a Rohmer film, or it's certainly nothing loud or violent. The characters are usually too well behaved, and sometimes they're too distracted by their own problems to pay much attention to the plot Rohmer's thrust them into. And that's one of the pleasures of a film like this. We can recognise the rhythms of real life in it, in which personal drama sometimes has to wait while we attend to routine duties. There's the sense in a Rohmer film that the characters are free to walk out any time. They're not on assignment. They don't have to stick with the plot to the bitter end, as people do in a Hollywood film. The appeal of a Rohmer film depends on the personal charm of the actors. They're usually pleasant, they're bright, bourgeois, and we want them to find happiness but aren't going to lose much sleep if they fail in their quest to do so. The real appeal may be that they lead lives just like ours, but in other bodies and with other friends. Their decisions are like test drives for trips we might take ourselves someday. Now, the cast for this tale consists of Anne Tessèdre as Jeanne, Hugues Questor as Igor, Florence Darel as Natasha, Eloise Bennett as Eve, Sophie Robin as Gaëlle, Marc Leloup as Gildas, and François Lamour as William. Rohmer's people suffer personal spasms that don't cause ripples beyond their immediate vicinity, but within the framework Rohmer has created for them, his microcosm, every spark, the slightest word or gesture, can change the course of their lives. Rohmer's dramatic strategy here is to bring a group of disparate characters together, watch them react to one another, and have them splinter off again in different directions. He watches as fates intersect, and then alters their courses accordingly. Conte de l'Hiver, or Tale of Winter. From one angle, Eric Rohmer's late career masterpiece is a luminous Christian parable about the transformative effects of grace from one another. And it's a frightening, unresolved picture of the role that chance plays in human affairs. Now, at the beginning of this tale, made in 1992, French director Eric Rohmer's tender and exquisitely graceful love story, the camera captures a pair of young lovers in the midst of a summer idyll. So sun-dappled and romantic that it verges on cliché. One summer, a young man and woman, Frederick van den Drijske and Charlotte Very, fall deeply and passionately in love. And 5 years later, after accidentally giving him a false address, she is raising his child and drifting back and forth between two infatuated men with whom she's unwilling or indeed unable to settle down. A Tale of Winter, which includes a generous excerpt from the play from which it's taken, is fullest expression of Rohmer's career-longing reckoning with William Shakespeare, the most sophisticated of his many attempts to pin down the nature of faith and one of his most graceful, mysterious, and emotionally overwhelming films. The scenes of both beach and winter are juxtaposed. The summer setting with bright colours, easy lifestyle representing a flourishing relationship. The gay city of Paris in the dead of winter, representing the statue grey bundled up, restrained, and the complete loss of romantic freedom. And now we turn to a film in the set that's called Conte d'été, or A Tale of Summer, from 1996. It starts with a long, wordless stretch that captures the isolated feeling of being friendless in a strange place, however beautiful that place might be. It ends in chaos, albeit chaos of the low-key sort that might be expected of a Rohmer film, as Gaspard tries to navigate a situation in which too many women are demanding his attention at once, though if anything, even less dramatic than A Tale of Springtime and A Tale of Autumn, it depicts a long summer with a lot of aimless strolls, lounging around and waiting for phone calls that may or may not happen. The film feels weightier than those seasonal companions. Whether he recognises it or not, Gaspard has reached a turning point, and the choices he makes as summer draws to a close will have profound implications on the rest of his life. Rohmer is a master of final scenes that subtly and unexpectedly reveal the significance of all of the moments leading up to them, and this one packs a wallop. A young mathematician with musical aspirations, Gaspard, played by Melville Poupeau, has opted to spend his summer in the seaside at Brittany, lured by the possibility he might reunite with his sometime girlfriend, Lena, Aurélia Nolan. There he meets Margot, Amanda Langlais, an ethologist who researches the culture of the region when she's not working as a waitress. Now they begin spending their days together, and their closeness sometimes erupts into episodes of romantic tension, which doesn't stop Gaspard from also pursuing Solène, Gwenenelle Simon, an acquaintance of Margot who takes a liking to him. Now, A Summer's Tale from 1996 is considered one of Rohmer's more conventional films due to its autobiographical nature. Rohmer's use of a male protagonist in the film is somewhat of a departure from his earlier films, and it's evidence for the idea that he put many of his own ideas into Gaspard's mouth during his long discussions that he has with Margot. This is the first time, Gaspard says, he has a genuine relationship with a woman, and he ends up confiding in Margot the reason he is in Brittany. He hopes to meet up with Lena, Aurélia Nolan, a woman he's infatuated with but who may or may not care about him. Frustrated with Lena's non-appearance, Gaspard is susceptible to Margot's suggestion that he take up with Solène Gwenanelle Simon, a friend of hers who finds Gaspard attractive, but like everyone else in this exquisitely calibrated film, has her own specific ideas about how relationships should be conducted. Now, Rohmer's use of clothing appears to be a metaphor for the personalities which Gaspard has to choose from. For instance, after the first scene at the beach, Gaspard does not see Margot again in her swimwear. Her attire is loose, casual, and she even appears in pyjamas at one point in a later scene. Her skirts are often short, and she appears to use her legs to flirt with the oblivious Gaspard. Time also plays an important part in the film. Title cards show the date each day from the 17th of July to the 6th of August, and Gaspard tracks how many days late Lena is while he's walking with Margot and scanning the beaches for her. And characteristically of Rohmer's films, time is shown highly linearly. Gaspard is shown to be extremely conscious of time and its constraints. For instance, he has a date on which he must leave for his new job in Nantes, and he's upset at Lena for going on an unplanned trip to Jersey with her cousins, on the grounds that it leaves them too little time to visit Ouessant together. The film was shot on location in the seaside towns of Dinard, Saint-Malo and Saint-Lunaire early in the summer of 1995 to avoid the tourists. Melville Poupeau recalled Rohmer shooting long single takes, not wanting actors to rehearse too much so that their lines would stay fresh, and the tourists that were presently mostly ignored the presence of the small film crew there. An engaging piece of observational cinema, this film is a pleasure to watch, as the young people in it talk passionately about what's important in their lives as they dance around potentially involved with each other. Conte d'automne, or Tale of Autumn, is made in 1998 and is Eric Rohmer's delicate ode to love in the autumnal years, set in the French countryside. It blooms like time with an old friend. Against the hyped-up, noisy mediocrity that passes for summer entertainment in most multiplexes, this film's like having Beaujolais piped directly into your soul. Isabelle, Marie Rivière, is a bookseller who feels that her divorced friend, that's Magali, Beatrice Romont, a 45-year-old vintner in the Côte-du-Rhône countryside, needs a partner. Magali may be stubborn, caustic, and indeed set in her ways, but she's also perceptive, interesting and attractive, and she deserves someone in her life. Without informing Magali of her agenda, though, Isabelle places a personal advertisement in the local paper, and when she gets a promising reply from Gérald, that's Alain Lebeau, a middle-aged man in need of someone special, she agrees to meet him for lunch. Now, Rohmer started his career with a series called Six Moral Tales in the 1960s, and he continued with Comédie et Proverbe, that's including the wonderful Pauline at the Beach, which I've already mentioned, before he made Saison. Between these series, Rohmer has made other films, including Rendezvous in Paris, but his films share similar predilections and themes. Rohmer's deep interest in men, women and their differences, how one's locale, urban, suburban or rural, affects one's personality and soul, and the bewildering, frustrating and exciting versions of love in all its forms. So let's have a toast to the legendary Rohmer for making us care whether two people, neither one of them in their 20s, or indeed with their own TV sitcom, album or talk show, will get together or not. More power to him, indeed, for making us sip and savour every single character on the screen. We learn more about the minor characters in Autumn Tale than we would about most major ones in an average Hollywood film. If you haven't seen a Rohmer film and wonder where to start, the answer is really anywhere. You don't have to see them in order. You don't even have to see the numbered tales. The title, for instance, says it all. Rohmer is most prolific and constantly enchanting. He is at once a realist, his characters behave as people do in real life, and a practitioner of subtle magic realism. In the way hidden patterns, coincidences, misunderstandings, happy chances, and fateful accidents befall his characters. There is a kind of comfort in his films also, a gentle lulling through the rhythms of everyday life, and he finds great beauty in ordinary people and locations. Now this set comes with supplemental features which are spread over the discs in the set, and they are new 2K digital restorations supervised by the cinematographer Diane Baratier and Laurent Scherer, director Eric Rohmer's son, with compressed mono soundtracks. New interview program recorded at Rohmer's house in Toul, France, featuring Baratier, producer Françoise Etchegaray, sound engineer Pascal Ribier, and the editor Mary Stephen. Excerpts of radio interviews with Rohmer, conducted by the film critics Michel Simon and Serge Danet. Documentary from 2005 on the making of A Tale of Summer by Etchegaray and Jean-André Fichy. 2 short films directed by Rohmer, that's A Farmer in Montfaucon, 1968, and The Kreutzer Sonata, 1956. There's a trailer for the film and an essay by the film critic Imogen Sarah Smith, a regular contributor to Criterion, and a new cover is by Polly Deadman. This set is a great way to discover Eric Rohmer's work. Don't be impatient though, as each film has its own leisure pace, and some may even label them slow. But it's definitely considered by its director, and nothing belongs unless he wants it to. Eric Rohmer died in January of 2010, aged 89. The films in the set, their aspect ratios, and their running times are now on the screen. Eric Rohmer, Tales of the Four Seasons, comes to the Criterion Collection as Collective Spine 1206, and it's released on Tuesday, the 13th of February. In the next edition, we'll be looking at a double bill of martial arts films. That's The Heroic Trio and Executioners, starring the brilliant Michelle Yeoh and Maggie Cheung. So until then, from me, it's goodbye, and indeed, good Criterion viewing.